Hi everyone, it's Nadia and Jake. This is Buddy, that's Sedona, and then our Babu boy is playing downstairs. And today we are here to talk about Wheel of Time Season 2, the first 3 episodes, which just premiered yesterday. Jake made a fantastic video essay about Season 1. Very, very beautifully done, I must say. So we're only going to talk about like the first 3 episodes mostly. So
well, that's the first ones those are all that are available
right now. Yeah, and then we will do like a final impression at the end when the season is over. So we both have some thoughts because
no spoilers first.
No spoiler
we'll do
first.
Spoilers at the end.
I wanted to watch the second season and you did not.
No, I was very disappointed by the first one. You can see that in the review I did.
I was new. Like Jake read some of the books and has like a previous interpretation of it. When I first watched it, we went to the Los Angeles premiere of Wheel of Time. I actually thought it was good. However, as the season went on because it was the first 2 episodes that premiered in that, and then I kept watching the whole series. I watched it multiple times in conjunction with your video essay preparation. I definitely was disappointed at the end, even as a first time viewer, because some of the things, it's just like a little draggy. I thought the pace could overall use some help. The second season, I was interested in it because I don't have like this previous book, like what happens to the book origin story. I can like look at the show for itself and not like compare it to the book in the back of my mind, which I know like from a lot of Wheel Time book lovers, it's a big criticism right now of the show. I would give this second season, the first 3 episodes thus far, a solid 5 out of 10.
Wow, that's lower than I expected.
Yeah, what did you expect?
Well, it seemed like you were enjoying it. You were very looking forward to the season.
Maybe I had a little higher expectation because I thought like they were gonna take some of the criticism that happened in the first season, because there were a lot of it.
Maybe, yeah.
And then they were gonna apply it to second season. I was also like kind of interested in seeing like where Matt from first season, where he ends up, or all the characters end up. They left it kind of weird place. Well, not weird place, but like a good cliffhanger. I think they improved on the pace quite a bit. However, there's a lot of just the same thing. Just some of it's not as engaging. Like I could find myself like looking at my phone. There's a lot of story that a little repetitive to the first season. It was very obvious what was going to happen. I predicted some of the plot points and you were like, yeah, that's what happens in the book. So it was very much like on the nose what's going to happen, and that kind of takes some of the fun away. This is just personal, but I hate how much it's trying to become Game of Thrones like, with all the dead animals and just this repetitively brutal visuals. I don't like that in general, but I also felt like it was trying to be something else in a way. There's so many shows like that at this point that I'm like, I haven't read the book again, but it just kind of felt like, yeah, I've done that. I don't really want to see that. And I felt like they overdid it. Egwene, I really find her character so annoying, although I'll say in the final episode there was a call out of her character, which I really did appreciate. I hate these cliches of character development sometimes that I feel like could have happened like earlier in the season. And mind you, this is like them taking multiple books and piecing it all together in second season, but I felt like Nynaeve, she still had like character development in a way that like I felt like should have happened previously. I felt like she was stronger she kind of reverted a little bit in the first 3 episodes, which I can get into the spoiler section. Rand, I don't think he had enough screen time the first episode, when it's really, it's an ensemble, but it's a lot about him. I also thought the way they portrayed Moraine in the first 3 episodes was annoying. Secrecy that didn't need to be secret. Cruelty in a way that didn't need to be that cruel, just for, I think,
forced conflict
for her and Lan to go through XYZ at the end. Rand's lover, I can get into spoiler about what I predicted, but again, very predictable stuff right now. And maybe you could argue that with fantasy, it is kind of predictable in certain sense.
No, I don't think you need to degrade fantasy by saying like
well, people do say that though.
But people will go like, "Oh, it's good for fantasy." It's like, no, fuck that. Like, it needs to be good. Like, there's plenty of good fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, like, and this is something that I'm coming out of, like, a viewer, again, who has never touched the books, right? We have the books. He read some of
I
them,
read a
but,
couple
like,
of them.
yeah, but I haven't touched it. So if I felt like it was on the nose, I feel like it was definitely on the nose. But, and that's why I rated it 5 out of 10, is because I had high hopes. It definitely improved from season 1, I believe. It definitely was an improvement. And maybe, like, you know, episode 4 till the end, maybe it will be vastly different than the first 3 episodes. I don't know, because they're not out yet. But so far, I was disappointed. I found myself checking the time.
I feel like a large problem with this show is that
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I say one more thing? It's so many dark screen time. We could barely see what was going on. Like,
It was
so
very
many
dark.
scenes that we had to put, like, I don't even know what happened on those scenes because it was too dark. And I know it's a creative choice, but stop making that creative choice. It's freaking annoying. All right, go ahead.
I generally have really big complaints about the directing of these episodes. I think that it's so bland and really unimaginative, and they have these nice looking sets, but I feel like they just don't know how to film them in a way that makes them feel big. Everything just feels sort of small. I think one of the biggest issues with the show is that they're making like a CW show or like a USA show or like some kind of like quick cable show, you know, like Suits or 45-minute episodes, like pulpy and quick and fun.
Kind of like Merlin.
Like Merlin, I guess, but like something that's just like you can consume it on your phone and not have to pay attention too much. But they have the budget and the prestige of Amazon. They're trying to make it big. They have these longer episodes that are longer than an hour. You know, I felt like the episodes were overstayed their welcome a bit. It's kind of this like bad mixture where it's like it feels like a CW show, but they have these nice big sets and everything's too slow. It's like, if we're going to go CW territory and just make this all story and quick, like, let's just trim this down. Let's focus on plot or something. I don't know, because the first 2 episodes were really, really slow, and I found them pretty boring. In my opinion, the weakest episodes in the first season were those where all of the characters were split up and separated and doing their own thing, and that's what's going on all of this season so far. All the characters are off on their own little journeys, and yeah, I just feel like you said, the writing is just weak. It feels very heavy-handed, huge music that's constantly like narrating everything. Like, they need the music to be constantly telling us how to feel. There's zero subtlety in anything, really. Packed with cliched lines. You know, characters are just always acting like how you expect them to. There's some interesting dynamics that come up, but there's really very few surprises. And saying all that, I will say I think that it is improving in general. You know, I started to get sort of interested in the story, and again, they're like mixing stuff from later in the book, so there's a lot that I have no idea what's going to happen, you know, because I've only read the first couple of books, and you know, they're throwing in all sorts of stuff that it's so different from the books too that you kind of have to go, okay, this is a separate thing. Like Daniel Green was kind of talking about how he's trying to appreciate the show as something that's not really the books, but like a remix of the books, you know,
more like inspired by, I would say.
More like, yeah.
But like at the same time, you have to. I do criticize the over criticism of it not being like the books, because it's a show, it's a different like scope. Look at it as individual materials at certain like in certain aspect. You can't expect that it will be all the same, because in books there's a lot more time. There's a lot.
Yeah.
So if it was just like the book, it wouldn't serve anyone else but the true fans of the book, and maybe even then it would be a little bit overdue. I mean, these are really extensively long books.
But there's a point where you go, if you're really not interested in adapting the books, why are you adapting the books? You know, and I get like it's an IP, you know, it's a brand, but I just can't help shaking the feeling that the people writing the show just don't really want to adapt the books. They want to do a fantasy show, all the tropes and stuff in the books that they can draw from, and I just feel like they're just kind of shaking it up and doing whatever they're interested in, which that's fine, but also I just think that the writing just isn't up to a level where it's engaging, it's interesting. The characters don't feel like independent agents doing their own thing. Everything feels orchestrated to have the punchline or the quippy dialogue at the end of a scene, or the thematics told at you, you know. The first episode, it just felt like characters talking at the audience for the entire runtime because they're recapping stuff, trying to make sense of things that were super rushed at the end of the last season, trying to create forced conflict like Moraine and Lan and stuff that's like, I don't know, like let's focus on the other things. Bizarre choices to me. And again, I'm just left feeling like, like it's not the worst thing that you could watch and spend time watching. But I also feel like, and I was reading about this the other day, that there are like executives and stuff on like streaming platforms who specifically talk about certain content being stuff that you watch on your phone, like while you're on your phone, like stuff that isn't super engaging, so that you can do other stuff and like kind of be on Instagram while you watch it. And they're like, yeah, that's kind of like, what do they call it? Like lean back content or something?
I never heard of that.
I was reading about this where they're like, yeah, we have certain shows that are like, you need to be invested and watch every minute. But then we also like to have other programming where people can just chill and be on their phone.
Is it supposed to be like a game night kind of thing?
Well, it's just like, it's not demanding. Like you can do other stuff. And that's the sense where I got, where we're sitting here watching it going like, there's really not enough going on. Like it's just very predictable that you just want to be on your phone.
Yeah, I felt like it was engaging because we watched one of the episodes when we were, you know, at a family dinner.
With lots of distractions.
And with lots of distraction, and I felt like
that was more engaging.
It was engaging in that way when you could kind of like, you know, because it was like we were trying to tell other people like, oh, what was going on.
Yeah.
And I felt like, oh, this is actually not bad. But like so it's a very interesting what you say if it was aimed towards that. But then again, it pulls into the question, if that's the purpose of it, then is it really like, can we really criticize that because it's achieving it, right?
Maybe that's what they're going for. I don't know, but I just feel like they aren't giving us characters to really care about. Like
I feel like
I like Nynaeve.
I like Nynaeve and I like Rand.
Rand, I don't know. I don't care that much. I like Nynaeve. I like
Nynaeve and I like Lan.
Right, their story. I feel like Nynaeve is the most fleshed out character, strangely enough,
even though I feel like she reverted this season.
Yeah,
I think they reverted her back to propel her forward. That's what I'm predicting. So I can excuse that.
But is it just also the performance? Because she's giving a fantastic performance too, you know? And again, there's just not much. Like Perrin just still isn't interesting. You know, he's
more interesting.
He's
definitely more interesting than he was last season. Last season, he was just there to moan about his trauma, which he's
still doing that.
Yes, but he's doing something with it this time.
I guess, yeah. I don't know.
It wasn't actionable, I felt like, even though there was lots of scenario where it could have been. I think that in this season, maybe like them separating characters rather than bringing them together, which isn't spoiler for this season because that's how the last season ended, I think is a way for them to individually focus on different arcs. I don't know.
The show is just so bad at carrying momentum and like giving us a sense like we're moving towards a goal.
I will say one suggestion that you made while we were watching that I thought was great and would have improved the show is when you said they should show us a map of where each characters are so we can get to know, oh, this person is in a different country. Yeah. This person's like in a different country, whereas they're just kind of like going back and forth. And you understand it after a minute, but it would have made it more engaging, I think, and made it more fantasy-like too. Yeah. Because then you're able to see the overarching world of it.
Everything feels so small, even though they have these big sets and
all this. I feel like the only thing that makes them different is some clothing choices, which still doesn't like separate it too much out. And granted, this is like a fantasy, maybe the clothing choices are there for a reason, but I feel like it would have made the world feel much bigger and more set-like. Set-like meaning they have a higher budget than what was actually portrayed, because you're absolutely correct. Oh yeah, like Merlin, which is like a TV show that's made, it doesn't feel like
Merlin is fun, but it's
fun, but it's not like you expect it to be a TV show. There's a certain expectation for it, right? In
that sense, it's more concise. It has more, the stories are more structured. Whereas with this, it has the feel of Merlin, but with the sprawling, meandering quality of something else.
Well, with Merlin, there's a plot per episode, but then there's an overarching plot that each episodic plot kind of propels that long-term goal.
Whereas when you watch this show, you're like, are we near the end of an episode? Like, it's hard to tell when the episode's going to end, because it just seems like it's like, all right, we're done with this stuff. Let's move to the, like, you know?
Yeah, there's an overarching plot and not a subplot. So it keeps each episode less engaging because you have to be in it for a long haul. But the criticism I have about that is that you are aiming it at all audience. Mostly, I would say, even you're aiming it at people who haven't read the books, because book lovers of the series are not like enthusiastic about the way that these out of character moments or out of book moments are happening. It's like a very, very vocal criticism of the show, right? I mean, at least in my point of view. But at the same time, without having a subplot, they're making like audience like me who haven't read the book and who are just purely watching the show for show content less engaged, because you're like, okay, I understand there's this dark evil figure that has to be defeated. I understand the dragon reborn, but like probably not going to happen for very many seasons, right? I need something temporarily, like a closer goal that I can see achieved.
Yeah.
And that closer goal could be end of season at the same time. Like each episode has something that I'm like looking forward to at least wrapping up or having a good cliffhanger so that I can keep watching the next episode. Either a good cliffhanger or a conclusive ending that will propel me to be like, okay, what's next now? You know, and not every show does that perfectly, but I felt like Merlin, at least I don't like the last season of Merlin, but I felt like most of the episodes were, you could see like, okay, this is a short-term ending and this is how it's gonna impact the long-term goal, right? Do you recommend it or not?
I can't really recommend it or not recommend it. I'd say like...
But you would keep watching.
I have to.
I would recommend it still, just because I do think...
I don't think it's great television, but it's like,
not great, but
I have a relationship to the books and already with the series. So
well, as a person who doesn't have relationship to books, I would still recommend it, even though I rated it lower than
I'd 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10, yeah.
I'm do this thing. Yeah.
Okay. Whoa. I would still recommend it because it's only episode 3 and I feel like every show deserves a fair chance, and I think it wasn't too bad. It was just more so like I expected more.
It's definitely better than the last couple episodes of the previous season.
And I do think it's overall better than the first season, actually. So there you go. You know, they are improving, and I think that's hope. All right, spoilers?
Spoilers, 3, 2,
1. I wanted to talk about Nynaeve
Mm-hmm.
and Egwene. I really like that they called out Egwene's character being jealous,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like they called her out a little too late, because she was really starting to... I thought it was funny, like the first episode where Nynaeve is amazing, like basically, right? And then Egwene's face goes... And it's really funny to watch, because like first season you could tell that she thought she was the dragon reborn. So her being consistently, her ego being depleted is really funny to watch. At a certain point it got annoying though, because I'm like,
it's like that's the only thing they have going between them, really.
She just feels like there's nothing really like going on for her, and she becomes like a comedic beat, when I know that the end game is supposed to be her and Rand together. Rand is a dragon reborn, so I would think that they would want to do something a little bit more with her. That could still happen, because the last episode when she was called out and Nynaeve, everyone thought she was dead. Egwene kind of had like a reality check, like I really care about Nynaeve. I've been a jealous B word, so I'm going to see if there's a way that I can bring her back. And there's the emotional scene. They are the only two who are not separated, right? So they might have, because Nynaeve is my favorite character in the series so far, Egwene might have things turn around yet, but I do want something individualistic for her, and something that she can really go forward to, because I feel like her alone is very unengaging right now, and I don't think it's the actress's fault. I think it's completely like writers of her.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's a mistake, I think, just to have everyone separated again, because, in the second book, and I don't know what they're planning, I have no idea, but in the second book, Rand is with them. They don't think he died. I don't know why they faked his death.
But then you told me that the girl who was like the heir, I forget her name.
Elaine.
You said it comes in the first book, not the second.
She makes an appearance. She wasn't in that.
Well, but still, she made an appearance in this one, and she's, so...
She has a bigger deal in the second book, but, Sorry, go ahead.
Well, they're obviously mixing up books, that's all I was
saying. Yeah, they're mixing everything up, but I just don't know why they did the fake out, or everyone thinks Rand is dead, but he was part of their quest for the horn, and he's with them for a lot of the time, and the second book feels more like a TV series than this currently, in that, like, the second book kind of had, like, the whole book story, and then, like, episodic events happening throughout, and it's like, you can kind of see it being a show in a sense. I get they're doing something totally different, but I don't see, it's not entertaining for me. Like, I don't see the entertainment value in it so far. It just feels like it's sort of convoluted, but also not making the characters more complex. It's just the plot, it becomes more confusing, I guess. But the characters are just as static, I feel like, and they're creating forced conflict, like between Moraine and Lan, that I don't find very interesting.
That's so forced, because Moraine is being cruel to her Lan. Like, you understand, like, she's depressed. It's like a great depression when you are separated from your powers, being in a position that she was. But at the same time, like, it's so easy to see that they're just making conflict within her and Lan just so that they can be brought back together at the end and, like, apologize, because he's being directed, like, he's clearly frustrated, but it's like, you would think that they would have, it's just, things are dragging on. Like, it's too long for them to be so, her to be the way that she was without, like, another reason or something else. Like, it's just very stale and very draggy.
I will say, I think that they have improved on Leandrin's character, who's the red Aja lady. In the first
I was going to say that, yeah.
She was very mustache twirly, just like bad guy. But in this one, they added some complex stuff. Like,
add complexity to it. Well, which you said wasn't in the book, that she has a son. So
not that I ever remember.
But in the show, they say, they can de-age themselves or stable their age so that they don't age any further. And then her son is dying and stuff. I thought that was really cool. I don't know her plans for Matt and why she released him on purpose and kind of had, like...
Right. That was very convoluted. I don't know. But what do you think of the new actor as Matt? I thought he did a good job.
I thought he did a good job. I thought he did as well as the last actor, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I thought they did an excellent job.
I don't see what they're doing with this character or anything. Like, there's nothing interesting.
But that's not the actor. That's the plot, right?
No, and the character stuff is just like, all right, he's just... Again, I feel like they just don't know how to write characters. They're just there. Like, they're just static.
Well, I think that it's just such a big series that they should really stop mixing, maybe, and they should maybe tackle one book at a time, because
I feel like they're too ambitious.
Their storyline is getting really convoluted, and with the non-engaging factor of the show, it can sometimes be hard to kind of pay attention, because it's like, whatever. I think maybe, like, sticking to one book at a time.
Do you know what it comes across as? Because a lot of the concern about adapting the series was like, oh, it's so slow and there's so much lore and people will get bored because there's so much going on and it's hard to follow. I feel like that's something on the writers' minds constantly is, oh, we need to make this entertaining. We need to show stuff all the time and just, like, move stuff around so that people aren't like, oh, what's going on? But I think it's almost like, this is my sense, that they are undervaluing the intelligence of the audience. They're spoon feeding everything. And it's like, then you watch a game like House of the Dragon and it's like, we can follow things. We're intelligent, but they're just spoon feeding everything.
Well, and also one example of that is Rand with his love interest.
Yes,
and I'm not going to say who she is, because that is spoiler maybe for the season. But I said, I think she's going to be XYZ. And then you're like, yep, that's exactly who she is. Yeah. And that's, like, an example of it, because she acts so
the performance, the writing, the music. It's just
it's just, and it would have been honestly more interesting if she actually the character was portraying herself to be like, less methodical person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything else.
Me neither.
Those are the things that I wanted to do. I mean, like, I guess, like, I'm interested to see how the fake dragon reborn from the first couple episodes of the first season, what his end game is this season.
I don't think there's any.
Well, there's on the preview of what's going to come, Moraine and some interacting with the fake dragon reborn. So, whereas thus far, Rand's just trying to understand how to control his powers, basically, and not go mad.
If there's anything the books did well, it makes it feel like this is a huge world, massive, tons of...
It is a huge world, but the thing
show
it doesn't feel that big. It feels that big by, like, the characters traveling to different areas, but it doesn't feel as grand as it should for a studio-sized budget.
No.
And I think that if it was, like, a smaller budget, even if it was a Netflix show, I think I would even rate it higher, because those things obviously factor into the making and the overall product of the show. But I think my criticism is higher for this show in particular, just because how much resource, and it may not even be the writer's fault, to be honest with you, because writers only have so much power over a studio.
Yeah.
We know that happening again and again and again from other products, and other movies. As a whole, it is improving, but there's so much more that they can improve. Yeah, I would still recommend that you guys watch it to see the end. Let us know what you guys think, and if you have a different opinion. If you liked it, tell us what. If you didn't like it, tell us why, and we'll talk to you next time.
Talk to you next time.
All right, bye.
Bye.